that leadership is not a position. Position is a reward for leadership. In other words, before one gets a position, because position is a kind of trust that is given to you either by the organization or by your community. They trust you with that position because they know you are capable. They trust your judgment. They have been watching your actions. First of all, as a writer, one thing about writing is that you can't write when you don't read much. In fact, I think it is late Miles Monroe who said before he wrote a book on relationship, he had read other 20 books related to relationships. So as a writer, I read extremely much.
In my few talks, today we are having a powerful man. I am Prince Enos, as usual. You know me, your boy. I always do good things for you. I always look for the powerful messages that you can get. So today I'm having a motivator. He is a life coach, and let him talk for himself. What I can talk about himself, I know he's Stephen Eretu. So dear Stephen, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. I am Stephen Eretu by names. I am a writer, a leadership coach, and a life coach. I also run a company called Legacy Insights that focuses on training leaders, focuses on ghostwriting, and we also offer mentorship programs.
Well, Mr. Stephen, I would like to know something about your life. As a motivator, a leadership coach, life coach, you have that group, you do writing. So how do you come to that profession before? How do you find yourself? How do you come to campus? How do you find yourself first at campus when you're fresh?
Okay, I think some years ago in 2011, I joined university. That was Bugama University. And I came to pursue a course in computing. That was information technology. And it was very interesting that my studies took quite long.
So your studies took quite, I love that.
Quite long.
So how different were your studies?
Okay, I used to have a lot of issues with the finances, so I could have a lot of dead years and dead semesters. So I ended up doing my bachelor's degree for a period of 8 years instead of 3. I did it for a period of 8 years. And I think in 2018, I graduated with the bachelor's in information technology after a period of 8 years.
So after 8 years, you're graduating with a bachelor's in IT. But now I'm seeing someone with IT now doing leadership coach. He's a motivator. So how do you now turn your dream? Because by the time you stepped at campus doing IT, I think it was your dream. Oh.
Okay, you see, one of the challenges that we face in the sub-Saharan Africa is that many students go to A-level, they go to O-level, like they sit senior 4 exams, they sit A-level exams, but they're lacking career guidance. We reach those higher levels of, we reach those levels of classes when we don't know where our strengths and weaknesses are as students. So when I completed my senior 4, I went to A-level, and then after A-level, I only knew one course in my life because I studied in so remote schools deep in villages. So I only knew about one course, and that was information technology. I never knew what information technology deals with, but I just knew it is information technology. So when I was applying to the university, that was Bugama University in 2011, I straight away applied for information technology. And for sure, I was given that course. I pursued it. In the first 2 weeks, I went to the head of department wanting to change my course from information technology to marketing management because I knew I was a very talkative man, as you can see up to now. So I knew maybe my right profession could have been marketing or journalism. Now, by that time, Bugama University had no journalism course. They only had marketing management. So I wanted to go for marketing, and my head of department refused. So I had to forcefully pursue my degree in the field of computing, where I actually graduated in 2018 as an information technologist.
Well, what is your word to students at campus who are pursuing different courses, but they have passion lying in another area?
Okay, I think I am a very, very strong believer in passion, and sometimes I call myself a passionpreneur because I'm somebody who would love to monetize my passion. I look for all creative ways to make sure I earn money from my own passions. And for those students who are at maybe campus and they're doing courses that they're not in love with and yet they have a specific passion, I would advise them to look for at least a creative way to strike a balance between the professions they're pursuing now and their passions. I would advise each and every person to pursue their passions, because if you pursue your passion, life is a bit complicated at some point, especially when you graduate out of university. there are a lot of things that are waiting for you out there. And I would advise people who are at university and have learned a bit about their passion to actually pursue their passion. Let them pursue their classes, let them pursue their profession, let them go on with their courses, but they need to find a spot within their lives to try to practice something related to their passion, because passion at the end of the day may be more important, even sometimes more than the academic papers.
So, well, as you followed your passion,
Yeah.
then you left IT.
Yeah.
You're now doing life coaching like something.
Yeah.
Okay, talk about that. What you're doing now?
Yes. Actually, first of all, when I did my profession for a period of 8 years, that was a very, very dark period of my life. And within that time, I learned a lot of things about myself. And then I have also learned that every problem that we go through in our lives can be a project. So if one learns to turn his problem into a project, then he will never have problems in his life. He will only have projects and opportunities. So the period of 8 years gave me an opportunity to learn my passions. And how did I come to learn these passions? It was just because that most of the times I was stressed because I'm seeing my classmates, my course mates going for exams, stressed because I would see my course mates going to to register for the new semesters. I was stressed because I was having dead semesters. So because of this stress, I ended up reading different books as a way of consoling myself. And in fact, the first book I read was Think Big by Ben Carson. Now, the book Think Big by Ben Carson helped me in many ways. First, when I got it, I read the title. I was like, okay, since I am struggling with the issues of finances, let me read this book. At all costs, I'm going to think big. Trust me, by the end of that book, I have to be honest, I never thought big. But I learned a lot of important lessons in that book. Number one, Ben Carson was a man who everyone thought that he had no talent. Even himself thought he had no talent. And that's where I was actually, that was my category. I thought I had no talent. So reading that book of Think Big by Ben Carson, and then later I read this other book by Robert Sula titled Tough Times Last, Tough People, Tough Times Never Last, but Tough People Do. So all those books inspired me a lot, and then they made me to fall in love with the field of reading. Now, the field of reading, when I started doing much reading, a lot about me changed. Conversations with my friends changed, and many friends now started depending on me for inspiration and motivation. Then I knew I still have much more responsibility, and slowly I started diverting from my field of IT to the field of motivational talks, which has been now advanced to leadership trainings.
Can we share a little bit of inspiration and motivation to our viewers? As a person, as a human being, how can you set your life ready for tough times, but they don't last for you, but for you, you last tougher than them?
Okay, I think one thing that everyone should understand, and this is one thing one thing everyone should understand is that problems come and problems go. Some people are like, imagine somebody is 25 years and is having a problem that has come just 2 weeks ago. And the problem that has come 2 weeks ago is getting you scared. You even want to commit suicide. First, you need to understand you are older than every single problem. Problems come and go. So when a problem comes, it is also important you have to look at the problem in different angles, because most of the times the problem with the problem is that we look at the problem as a problem. There are also other people out there, and these are the people I call real leaders. They look at the problem as opportunities. So most of the times in their lives, they don't see problems, they see opportunities. And the moment they see opportunities, they act on them. They come with a practical measure in what we call an action plan. They develop an action plan based on the problem they're experiencing, and they turn it into an opportunity, they turn it into a project, and all of a sudden they'll be like, wow, this man is lucky. He's not a lucky man. He just worked hard to meet his luck.
Well, how is this period of COVID taking you, and what is your message to the viewers?
Okay, first of all, I think the period of COVID, there's so many contradicting views from different people. But as an individual, I first of all went through my own pandemic. That was the 8 years period pursuing my bachelor's degree. It was my own pandemic, by the way. And I learned a lot of lessons in that period. It even led to the birth of my book, The Never Quit in the Pit book. So I learned a lot of lessons in the 8 years period. And this global pandemic is just, to me, a mini pandemic. Yes, people are in lockdown, but this is the most interesting thing people need to understand. There is a global lockdown and there is a mental lockdown. So if you're allowed to be mentally locked, you will live in this lockdown period and then graduate from the lockdown as a victim. There are people who are going to rise from this moment as leaders, and then there are people who are going to rise from this moment as victims. And when you rise as a victim, you'll crash back. In other words, victims are going to, post the lockdown, they're going to be giving series of excuses. Right now, leaders are preparing their minds on how to live post the lockdown. Victims are preparing a number of excuses on how to blame leaders post the lockdown. Now, this lockdown, by the way, has been the best moment for each and every individual to plan on their lives, because we have never had a free time like this before. And after this, the other free time you may ever get will get you in the hospital, possibly when you are bedridden. And you'll never have a period of 3 or 4 months where your boss is not putting you on pressure, where you're not having many assignments, where you're not having, you are not having anything putting you on pressure. This is the time absolutely for personal development. This is the time where each and every person should grow their leadership potential. This is the time to nurture our personal leadership seed. This moment is very special. This is the time to draw plans, and then after the lockdown, we implement the plans. This is the time to drive to design the blueprint, and then after this we shall have an execution. People shouldn't see the lockdown period as a problem. We need to see it as an opportunity to become better people post the lockdown, because mark you, during tough times, that is always a battle spot for great leaders. This can be a battle spot for some great leader outside there.
Well, you do leadership training. What does it take for one to be a leader?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question. Most of the times, there are very contradicting philosophies out there. And many people believe that for one to be a leader, he has to have a position. Now, at Legacy Insights, our training is a bit different. We don't believe that one becomes a leader when he has a position. In fact, we have a simple philosophy that leadership is not a position. Position is a reward for leadership. In other words, before one gets a position, because position is a kind of trust that is given to you either by the organization or by your community. They trust you with that position because they know you are capable. They trust your judgment. They have been watching your actions. Whatever you do every single day is part of leadership. Now, here is my small answer, or the basic answer. One thing that is required for one to be a leader, to me as an individual and as a person who is interested in personal leadership, is a requirement, or a requirement called breath. As long as you can breathe, you're a leader. You don't need a position. You don't need an office. You don't need a secretary. You don't need a rank. You don't need a title. As long as you are still alive, you are a leader.
Well, as a writer, which concept do you rely on when doing the writings? What do you base on, or how do you come up with your writings?
Okay, first of all, most of the books I've written, first of all, as a writer, one thing about writing is that you can't write when you don't read much. In fact, I think it is late Miles Monroe who said before he wrote a book on relationship, he had read other 20 books related to relationships. So as a writer, I read extremely much. I listen to other writers, I listen to other speakers, and by listening to them, by reading other books, I get a lot of inspiration. Most of the times, as a motivational writer or an inspirational writer, you can't write an inspirational book when you are not inspired. A writer gives out what he has. It is very easy for a reader to read my concept and know that this guy was not inspired when writing this. So I have to make sure I get inspired, and I have so many ways I get inspired. One of them is listening to other speakers and also reading a series of other books. I tend to become creative, I get much inspired, and then writing tends to flow naturally for me.
Your message to someone who is intending to become a writer?
Oh yes, one of the things I can tell one who is intending to become a writer is that when you want to write, start writing. Because there are two kinds of people. There are writers and waiters. Waiters wait for a right moment to write, and writers start writing now. If you want to write, start writing.
Well, we have waiters, we have writers, we have waiters, and we have people who start up now. My message to you is start now and you will succeed in life. Prince Enos, thank you for viewing our YouTube channel. We love you all. Subscribe and share the link. Remember to subscribe and share with your friends.